How's it going, YouTube? So I guess I'll need to correct a few things. These videos were intended for Facebook. Facebook won't let me put anything on there that's longer than 3 minutes. So a result of this has been I created my own YouTube channel to get everything I have to say out there. And I will just tag the YouTube link into the Facebook. Simple enough, right? So as promised, today's video is going to be about racism, and my opinion, racism should have been gone a long time ago. It's sad. It's the cause of probably the most human suffering of any other aspect that humans ever created. Human suffering. So, with that being said, I would also like to thank some of the people who have contacted me on Facebook or by phone and have brought me to tears, congratulating me on my first video and my decision to move forward and try to inspire some people and try to educate some people about stuff I find interesting and things like this. It wasn't easy, but it does make me happy. It's satisfying. I've been working on this for 2 days. I had to write a rough draft. I had to Google the enunciation of a few words that I couldn't quite pronounce. It's quite a bit of work. I put this together myself. You're going to have to deal with me reading from this thing. I'm probably going to lose my place a few times. And you're just going to have to deal with it. This is take 2, by the way, for that freaking reason. So it is what it is, man. We're going to keep going until we get it right. Or just deal with the mistakes. We'll see what happens at the end of the video. Something else I'd like to note. I'd like to say that at the end of the video. Never mind. Let's get started. Let's see if I can accomplish making this happen in one smooth, fluent motion without losing my train of thought or embarrassing myself. So, the way I'd like to start this video on racism is this. Ultraviolet light is strongest near the equator. We live on a spherical planet, and it spins around the sun, hurling through space, spinning like this. The areas closer to the sun are hottest, and that's all it takes is that little curve. So this is the hottest place on the equator. Further from there would be not quite as hot. Further from there, cooler still. So on until the polars are freaking frozen. It's just how it works. There's no arguing with that. But what does that mean? What does that have to do with anything that I'm doing here? Well, in order to understand what it is I'm trying to get at, I could make this video in a minute. I could make this point literally in 1 minute flat. But I'm choosing not to do that. I'm choosing to put these facts in front of the point so that we can all hopefully understand a little deeper into the subject. Alright, so let's go. It's a well-established scientific fact that mankind emerged or separated from primates some 5 to 6 million years ago, a process known as random genetic mutation. 2 chromosomes within the DNA of our closest relatives in the animal kingdom, primates. This merge of chromosome, a major karyotypic fusion of 2 ancestral chromosomes out of the 48 chromosome within the primate DNA, caused the formation of human chromosome 2 and subsequent inactivation of one of the two chromosomes. Centromeres, creating our most primitive form, the first hominid. Short, hairy, and vulnerable, by no means our ancient ancestors resembled our former selves. Furthermore, it's a well-established scientific fact that these ancestors not only populated Africa, but somewhere around 4.4 million years ago, climate change caused grasslands to spread throughout the landscape. This caused them to stand tall in order to see over the top of the grass. Given enough time, so formed the first bipedal hominids, who stood erect, walking on two legs. Over a course of thousands or perhaps millions of years, these ancient hominids left Africa and populated our planet, not just once, but on 4 separate occasions. It's a long time. You have to remember that. Each occasion separated by lengthy stretches of time, settling in different regions for different lengths of time, becoming adapted to different environments containing different challenges and different benefits according to their specific locations, creating a home there, isolating certain genetic mutations in those specific locations, mutations like blue eyes, green eyes, red hair, or black hair, and so on. Some determined by their environments, and some by what's commonly accepted as attractive. The genes, either necessary for survival or simply found attractive, were passed on or lost. Wait. Let me go back. Yes, I think I got that right. Commonly accepted as attractive. These genes, either necessary for survival or simply found attractive, were passed on. Genes that were useless, that were not useful, or unattractive were not. These genes were lost, either eliminated by natural selection or bred out of the population. Think about it. Some mutations serve no purpose, mutations such as extra limbs. This happens often enough. Now imagine this mutation was either useful or desirable. When bred with, extra limbs would become more common. A good description of this, or a good example of this, happened in England hundreds of years ago when dwarfism spread throughout the population, caused by predetermined marriages. You were told who you were going to marry. It wasn't your decision. Oftentimes married inside their own families, the inability to refuse these predetermined marriages caused widespread dwarfism. We call this a fly in the soup, a term you may or may not have heard. Not unsimilar to the selective breeding of short legs in a dog or long ears in a dog breed. It's pretty damn similar. And this brings us a little bit closer to my point. In a nutshell, this is human history, the process in which our DNA operates. In a nutshell, this is how we took our current forms. So Douglas Adams' puddle analogy. Here's the part that I like. It says right here, analogy, freestyle, because I know this analogy. I don't have to freaking read it. So Douglas Adams' puddle analogy, it goes like this, in a nutshell. If a puddle were to wake up one day, he would just wake up and he would think, holy shit, this is comfortable. Like, this puddle that I'm in, this pothole that I'm in is like so fitting. Like everything's there, man. Like I mean, I couldn't be more fitting. Every atom, every molecule is all right where it needs to be. I have zero complaints. Could not possibly point out a niche that's missing. But we know this isn't true, right? We know that the water, it flowed into that pothole and it took the form of the pothole. This is understandable, right? Shouldn't be too hard to get that. So that's the perfect analogy for evolution. And this brings us closer to my point. In my opinion, racism is stupid. All right? But perhaps stupid isn't the right word. Perhaps the right word is ignorant. Ignorance isn't stupidity, it's a simple lack of information. You made a guess, you ran with it, and you were wrong. Or you just simply don't know. No one ever told you. You never picked up that book. The teacher never spit that stuff into your ear. Whatever it is, it's called ignorance. And I think that's exactly why racism still exists. Because not enough people know what I'm about to teach you. Oh, I should note, I realize some of you would argue with that point. Some of you would argue with the information that I've just given you. Think what you like. Ignore everything else and just focus on the next few minutes. If you or someone you know dislikes other humans simply because of their skin tone, tell them this. Ultraviolet light is stronger near the equator, the equator being the closest to the sun. Ultraviolet light is how humans create vitamin D. Too little ultraviolet, too little vitamin D. Too much, and you break down your foliates, neither of which is healthy. So as humans spread throughout the planet, our skin had to change. It's that simple. It's your body's way of making vitamin effing D and the right amount of it. You don't need too much and you don't need too little. If you were to drop off a family of white people on the equator and leave them there for 13 generations, they would be black. Because they're all human. There's one race, and it's the human race. And that's a scientific fact. Now, here's something I'd like to note that I actually wrote down. Perhaps you're confused about why you hate who you think you hate. So here's one for you. Although there is only one race on Earth, the human race, cultural differences definitely exist. All right? What I'm trying to say is this. I get another freestyle here. I'm not a racist at all. Not even a little bit. But I'll tell you this. It doesn't matter what color you are. It doesn't matter what kind of house you grew up in, what neighborhood you're from. None of these things matter to me in the least bit. But if you're the kind of person that walks around with a arrogant, shitty attitude and you're grabbing on your nuts and talking shit to everybody around you and you think you're just all that and the way you would handle things would be to, I don't know, shoot people, I don't fucking like you. I don't fucking like anything about you. Does that have anything to do with what color you are? Nah. Not even a little bit. This is the point, man. There are cultural differences, but there is no such thing as race. There's only one race. It's the human race. And we're all part of it. And we all need to be treated equally. Unless you're a fucking dickhead running around, shooting at people, robbing people, being an evil human. That's what they are. It has nothing to do with the skin color. So, let's, see, I'm going to need that in just a second. Let's have me tell you a little bit of my history real quick. A little bit of my history would be this. My grandfather was fairly racist. My father just a little less. My great-grandfather was probably a racist son of a bitch. And his grandfather probably owned slaves or bought and sold slaves. Be them Chinese or African American or Black Irish or Jewish. Lots of slaves out there. I don't know if there is any price difference here, but that was them, man. That was them. That was back then. This is me. This is today. Now, being as a little bit of this racism was passed on to me, you kind of learned by example, right? Monkey see, monkey do. Now, do you think that I'm going to teach my daughter to be a racist? Or do you think I'm going to do my very best to instill in her what I've just instilled in you? And do you think if I was to teach her to be a racist, that that the world would be a better place? Because that's no way, dude. You remember what I said earlier about the most suffering in human history? Let's continue to de-escalate the situation. Let's continue to become more educated and more awake, right? Let's continue to go this route instead of teach your kids to live the same shitty life that you lived, treating other people like shit because you don't like the way their body creates vitamin fucking D, right? That would be what I'm here to do. That pretty much concludes this video. I don't have much else to say on the topic. I hope that reached somebody, and I hope you can wake up in the morning and look in the mirror and see a human being, right? Go tell your Nazi buddy that he's a ignorant fool, and then tell him the definition of ignorance, because he's going to think you're calling him stupid. You know why? Because he's an ignorant fool. Take care, people.